get to these circa over under lines for draft position. I thought this was really interesting. Circa Sports betting site came up with these, and I haven't seen these before. But we'll just go over the Longhorns and where they are actually projected to be drafted based on these over under lines, and we'll tell you if we're taking the over or the under, whether these guys are going to be drafted earlier than they are slotted here or later than they are slotted. So they have first Byron Murphy. They have him at 16.5 at spot 16.5 here. Over under, we think Byron Murphy's going earlier or later than 16.5. Right now, I'm going to say later, only because it seems like all the premium positions, quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, which we'll talk about too, they're pushing everything down on the board, because it seems like that's going to be most of your top 15 will be quarterbacks, wide receivers, and offensive tackles. That may be 12 of your top 15 right there. Because you got 4 quarterbacks they're saying going to be drafted, 3 at the most, but you could have 4. Someone's saying that J.J. McCarthy could sneak in there. You're going to have 3 wide receivers taken in the top 10. All right, so that's your 6 to 7. And they said you're going to have 3 offensive tackles taken in the top 15. I mean, you're talking about right there 9 to 10 spots already taken up just from those 3 positions. So I'll go later on Byron Murphy. 16.5 is almost perfect though for him. I've seen him teens. He's almost a perfect spot.
And that's the thing is I don't know if he drops below 18. I think 18, 19 is kind of the cap of where Byron Murphy goes. I don't think he falls into the 20s. But that 16.5 is a really good number. But I'd say if I'm betting, I'd say he doesn't go 15, 16. I'll say 17, 18, 19. I'll give him that little bit of space. I'll take the 3 over the 2. But I would say it's probably between 15 and 19 is where we're looking at right now. What everybody's picking, what everybody needs, the draft team needs. But I don't see him slipping past 19. So that 15 to 19 range is where I got him. So 16.5 is a good number. But I'll say later.
Number. Yeah, it could be a push. I'll say a little bit later, but it could easily be a push. That could be right on the money there. They got AD Mitchell at 17.5 at spot 17.5. This one is a tough one too, because over earlier or later, I think I'll take later on AD Mitchell as well. I think I'll go later. I mean, all the mock drafts have had him in the 20s. In the mid-20s, but I see why people think he's such a freakish prospect. I mean, I go back to that stat from the combine. Only 2 wide receivers at the combine since 2015 have run at least a 4.35 or less, measured at least 6'2" inches tall, and had a weight of at least 205 pounds, and that was DK Metcalf and AD Mitchell. So AD Mitchell is rising up boards. As a matter of fact, we had some sound earlier of Adam Schefter. When Adam Schefter was asked on Establish the Run, the podcast, he was asked, who do you think is going to get drafted higher than they're being projected? He said AD Mitchell. Now, where's AD Mitchell being mocked? I think he's late 20s, so his earlier could just be mid to early 20s. I'm going to say later for AD Mitchell than at 17.5. 17.5 seems really high. That would make him he probably would be the 4th wide receiver off the board at 17.5, maybe 5th, which is right around where he's mocked right now. So I'll go later for AD Mitchell too.
Yeah, just looking at the teams, I don't know the team that would draft him that early. I don't think the Seahawks are going to get him there. The Colts probably not going to go. They just brought Pittman back. The Saints have Olave they drafted a year or so ago, have other needs they have. So 17 is that point. That's Jacksonville. Jacksonville could take him. They have a couple guys they paid, but with Ridley leaving in free agency, they may want to bring a guy in there. What's interesting is the odds are the same for Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. They're both 17.5. So they're saying those guys are right neck and neck of who's going to be that wide receiver taken right around there. But I'd say later for AD Mitchell too. He could go 17, but again, this is one of those ones. I don't see him going anywhere before 17. So you're either saying he goes right there or anywhere
drops.
Anywhere after.
Yeah.
So I'd say after, just solely on the odds based of that.
Yeah, I'm going to go later for him too. But I do think right now he's trending. He's definitely going to be a first-round pick the way things are trending. The next play, let's go to Xavier Worthy. They got him at 28.5, which is also right around where he's mocked, right? You got Buffalo in that category, right? Yep. Buffalo's right around there. Kansas City, we know, is going to be drafting last in this first round. So that makes a lot of sense for Xavier Worthy. I gotta say, there are a lot of teams that are really high on X-Man, but then there are some teams that if they have him as a second round guy just because of his frame, but that 40 time really propelled him on a lot of guys' draft boards. 28.5 with him. I know Mel Kiper's got him going earlier than that. I just saw it. We'll get into this tomorrow. Peter Schrager, who is one of the most respected NFL insiders from Good Morning Football, he has a mock draft this out. So we'll go over that tomorrow. But I believe on his mock draft, he's got Xavier Worthy going a little bit earlier than that. I don't know. For some reason, it's just a gut feeling. I feel like Xavier Worthy might go a little earlier than that 28. I mean, that's right around the space where he's supposed to be drafted. So it might just be a push.
So, but
let's push or early for me.
Right, look at the teams that are right around there. 25 is Green Bay. Green Bay could use a wide receiver. Don't know if they draft one there, but they could use one. Tampa Bay, they've got guys right now, but Tampa could Bay. Ask for someone down. You know, Mike Evans, they just re-signed. Yeah. But he's
been mocked to Tampa Bay. I believe AD's been mocked to Tampa Bay too.
Yes. Arizona definitely needs wide receivers. Hollywood Brown
Marvin
just left. So they're probably going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., but they could need another one. They could also not draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and trade out of that pick and want a wide receiver. So that's one. Buffalo is at 28. We know they need a wide receiver with Gabe Davis and Diggs both gone. And then you go 29 is the Lions, who we don't really think they do, but we've seen them mock there.
I've seen them mock there. Actually, I've seen, the Lions mocking getting a wide receiver.
And then the Ravens and Chiefs are both there as well. Both those guys could use wide receivers as well. So it's all in that back area where a lot of teams could use them. I'll say earlier, just because all those teams I listed before 28 and before, that I think that one of those teams might take a shot on him, that you have some quarterbacks in Jordan Love, who may love a real good deep threat in Green Bay, or Tampa Bay may like him to be someone to go down. Arizona, I think, is still someone you could see take a pick there. If they don't go early, if they trade out of that pick early and try and get some more guys, they could feel good about taking a wide receiver there as well.
I've said from the jump, I think a team's going to trade for Xavier Worthy, because I think this is going to be a team that they really like him. They have kind of a crush on him. Yeah. He'd be perfect for their system, and they're just afraid of some team getting him. So I think a team may trade up to go get him.
And then
maybe,
if you say that,
just like a spot or two, just like 2 spots.
And
like, oh man, he's right there.
Yeah, and that's Arizona again at 27. If you think Buffalo may take him at 28, you jump in where Arizona could be key to move down and could fill more holes on that roster at 27. That's the Texans.
Or Kansas City. I can see Kansas City seeing him being like, you know what, we really want him. He's right there at 26.
That's what I'm saying. But you're going ahead of Buffalo. You know Buffalo could take him.
Yes.
So you say at 28 is Buffalo. Mm-hmm. We know Arizona has that 27 pick. They're probably willing to move down.
Yep.
And we can go get him at 27.
Yep, and that's how he would go. So I don't know why. I got a feeling that could easily 28 is the right spot, as you just pointed out. I just got a feeling the team is going to trade for X-Man just because of the 40 and all the hoopla around them. I think they're going to believe he's perfect for their system, kind of the last missing piece for them. All right, over-unders here. Let's go JT Sanders. He's at 50.5 on the over-under for Circa Sports. That'll put him dead smack in the middle of the second round pretty much. JT Sanders is interesting, man, because he has dropped down on a lot of teams' boards. A lot of teams don't even have him as the second best tight end in the draft anymore because his measurables were just terrible. His athletic profile was just bad. I mean, he just didn't test really well. But his drills were really good, and his film is outstanding. Guys, great at contested catches. He's going to remind, you know what? I think I said at first that he was going to go earlier than 50.5. And now I'm thinking that he might go a little bit later. I think you had him going later than 50.5. Patrick. Yeah. I think I'm going to switch up and take later just because of more of the stuff that I'm reading. They're saying some of the other tight ends now are ranked ahead of him. And I do wonder, after Brock Bowers is taken, if teams will just forget about tight end for a while just because JT Sanders didn't close the gap on Brock Bowers. Matter of fact, I think the gap widened between him and the rest of the field.
I'm not even worried about the gap between him and Brock Bowers, because that's now Grand Canyon. The problem is, I think the gap between second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth, I think that gap has closed. And once he starts to fall a little bit there, and you feel a little bit more okay with, well, if I don't get JT Sanders, I'll get so-and-so, or I'll get the next guy up. If you feel okay with that, then you're probably not going to reach and try and go get him. If you don't see other tight ends off the board, you're going to wait for somebody else to jump and take a tight end before you go after him. So I could see him slide a little bit more, just because I think tight ends as a general rule will slide in this draft. They're hugely important to a lot of teams, but I just don't feel that this is the draft where a bunch of teams are going to be going after him.
No, I'll agree with you on that. I think at first I was hoping early, but he just didn't test well enough. And that's the whole point, right? You take the guys early who have to film, that aligns with the measurables and the testing. But the guys who just have one or the other, you're gonna take those guys a little bit later because they're a bit, that's more of a roll the dice. You're taking more of a chance. And I think for JT Sanders, you got the film and the drills, but not the testing. So you don't know athletically if he's even worth drafting as high as some of those.
Now I'll say this: whoever gets him is probably going to get a steal.
Oh, I love it.
We know what he can do. But I'm just saying of what we've seen from the league so far, I could see him that people see him sliding down. But I think whoever gets him is going to get a steal.
I totally agree with that. Jay Brooks, he is the last of the Longhorns right now on that's listed of the over-unders. They got him at 56.5, which is no coincidence. The Cowboys drafting at 56. So this is basically Cowboys bet. Do you believe the Cowboys will take Jay Brooks with the 56th pick in the second round? I believe they will. I don't think he'll go past the Cowboys at 56 if he's not drafted before. So I'll take that. I'll take this. He goes earlier than 56.5. I'll take that.
Yeah, I take it too. I don't think he goes beyond. I think someone either trades up or picks him ahead of the Cowboys, knowing that that's where they assume he's going to go if they really are high on him. But I can't see him going past the Cowboys. They need a running back desperately.
Bad.
They know what he is. He's the best running back in the draft. He could be a great pickup for them for the next few years, whether they're keeping everybody or rebuilding. He'd be a great pickup for them either way. So I see that's where he would be going.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Some people ask me about T'Vondre Sweat. Why wasn't he listed? Because they seem like they're doing at least first and second round picks. Guys, there's some people that believe, including Matt Miller, who does NFL draft scouting, the Twitterverse, who works for ESPN. He has stated that most teams I've spoken to believe he's a day 3 selection now after his DWI charge and arrest. And we read earlier the tweets from Lance Zierlein, who said he believes the Texans are probably taking him off of their board completely. And Dane Brugler says teams were concerned because prior to the DWI arrest, there was reports of a reputation of partying and someone who liked to go out and maybe have too good of a time, and that the DWI pretty much confirmed or reaffirmed a lot of the negative draft reports about T'Vondre Sweat. So now combine that with the issues with the weight. Because guys, I don't know if I shared this with you guys. If T'Vondre Sweat, when he gets drafted into the league, he's going to be the biggest D tackle in the league, interior D tackle in the league. The second heaviest defensive tackle will be 347 pounds. He'll be 367.
Jeez.
He'll be 20 pounds heavier than the heaviest defensive tackle in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, someone may try and get him to lose weight there. That may be
I think that's the concern. Is they thought that would happen prior to the combine. It's like he came in bigger, and then came after the pro day, came in even bigger. And they're like, well, is that just because he just wants to prove he's a big man, or is it because he can't lose the weight? And I think that's now the concern. I don't have that concern, but I think scouts do.
And I mean, you have in the meetings, I'm sure some of those guys asked him, if we asked you to get to 340, could you? And would you? Or is this something that you don't want us to draft you? And I'm sure he dropped off some boards for whatever answer he gave that they, that if you sit and say, that's not what we want, we think you're really good, but we think you can do everything you're doing right now, 20 to 30 pounds lighter, and you'd have a longer career, that, once they're paying him, it's a lot easier to get those things done. But yeah, I believe that he'll probably go third round. I think he'll still go third round. If he doesn't, he goes really, really early fourth round. But I still can believe he goes third round just because somebody's going to go take the shot and get a good pick on him.
Oh, I think he'll be the steal of the third round if he goes third. But I'll say if he goes to third round, Cowboys, you should draft him. If he goes to third round, he's perfect for you in the third round. Yeah. He's perfect for the Texans in the third round. And I even said I would, if I was in the AFC North or the AFC East, I would think about drafting T'Vondre Sweat just because in those divisions, they run more power and gap schemes than they do in other divisions. And against a power gap scheme, you need a guy like T'Vondre Sweat, massive, who can clog up more than one hole with just his pure mass, guy that can demand a double team. Those where they run a lot of power gap schemes and they're running less zone, inside and outside zone and wide zone. You need a guy, a gargantuan rock of Gibraltar, like a guy like T'Vondre Sweat. So he will, when he's drafted to the NFL, he will be the heaviest D tackle at 366, 367. And I was wrong. The second heaviest D tackle is Quentin Bohanna at 360. All right, 360. So and I think the third heaviest is at 347. That's Vita Vea, actually. Vita Vea. So how about this? Two of the three heaviest D tackles in the league will be PK guys. No,
Hey, he's
sir,
got a type. No, man,
he's got a type.
Him and
There you
Sark's
go.
types are the most different you could be.
They're extreme. They're extreme.
extremes.
They extreme, like them BBWs, man. They got like them BBWs.